All right, YouTube, today I'm going to show you the steps involved in erecting a cedar fence gate right here to close off between the neighbor's fence and the garage. Add a little privacy and a little security. If you stick around to the end, I'll show you the steps to install the posts, to build the fence, cut in the gate, and stain it inside and out. All right, as we can see here, we've called the locate service to mark buried utilities. Our plan is to dig here. So we're probably clear of this one, but we're going to be careful, dig it by hand. And we also have a plan to dig one about here, which again, we should be clear of the utilities, but we're going to be careful and dig it by hand. So we start digging, looking for sprinkler pipes, looking for any buried utilities, just really being careful. It's a sensitive area. Okay, so this one's going pretty well. We've got the fiber box back there, and the arrow indicates it should be right in here. So I've been keeping this way, and we're about 10 inches deep already, which isn't even close to how far we need to be. And I don't know if y'all can see that. I'll show you, but there's an orange jacket here, and that's probably the fiber optic lines. So we're just going to keep them on this side and keep carefully digging. On this side, we started digging here and quickly found a sprinkler pipe. But since we were careful, very light-handed with the shovel, no damage was caused. So we're going to have to carefully dig over here now, where there shouldn't be anything else. The sprinkler lines should be the furthest over towards the property line of anything. Continue on digging by hand. I'm actually using a hand trowel here. This is painstaking, super time-consuming, but it's a safe way to do it. Okay, that was time consuming. Typically, if there's no buried utility lines, I'll take either post hole diggers or my gas powered auger and just drill a hole that deep. Takes 20 seconds each. Since we were dealing with buried utility lines and sprinkler lines, irrigation lines, I chose to dig these out as far as I could with the spade and then take a little hand trowel and dig the rest. They're not 24 inches deep like I like. They're about 14 and 17 inches, but I've also made them 50 to 100% wider, and I'm going to drive them down into the earth. It's not a long run of fence that's going to be subjected to a lot of wind, so while the depth here is not ideal, it's as best we can do without getting too rowdy and risking damaging a line. So next I'm going to show you how to put the posts in, drive them in, plumb them, and pour concrete. You might find videos where people do this step in a different order, but I'm going to show you how I do it. I'm going to center in the hole, maybe not center, but a little further back. Give it a good set. We know our only buried utility is this one, which is only about 2 inches down. We're going to get it in there. We're going to drive it just a few times. It's right about my height. Magnetic post level. Oh, set him on there. I'm just going to slowly level him out. That's perfect. Each one of these full bags of fast set calls for 3.8 liters. That's 1 gallon of water. Okay, that's 4 liters. That's 3.5. So we're right at about 3.8, 3.9. I'm going to pour it around the edge of the hole to make sure that any of the concrete that's around the edges gets pushed towards the middle. And with the last little bit, I'm going to use it to rinse off the post itself. All right, that's going to do it for today. I'm going to give those a day, maybe 2. I got some other projects I'm working on, maybe 2 days. And when I come back, I'll put on the rails, the pickets, and then I'll cut in the gate. And then we'll stain the whole thing, and this will be a done deal. All right, we're back. We gave those footings about 48 hours to dry. Now I'm going to affix 3 of these brackets to each post, and then I'll put the rails on. Shoveling the dirt back so I don't forget about it and have to do it later. Now we're putting 3 brackets just roughly on each post. We plumb the top one and measure down from the top one to know where to put our middle and bottom one. We then measure widthwise and cut the rails and install those with 1 screw each for now. What I'm doing here is I'm making a mark on all 3 rails so that when I put the gap between pickets for the gate to open and close and I cut the gate, I'm not worried about cutting through the steel bracket on the back side of the rail. I then hang my first picket. Since it's the first one, I'll plumb it with a screw top and bottom for now. Take a 2x4 to put a 1.5 inch gap between that picket and the next one. And I'll hang that one without even plumbing it. I'll come back and gap the bottoms with the same 2x4, and then rinse and repeat until the end. Screw it off all the way, 6 screws per picket. All right, so our latch will be here. This is where the gate will open and close from. This will be the gap for the hinges, where the hinges sit and allow it to open and close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a picket here on the latch side, and then I'm going to cut the rail at the middle and bottom rail on the latch side, as well as the top and bottom rail over here. I'll then put on the hinges, cut the middle, cut the top, and we'll see a preliminary look at how it's swinging, what we need to adjust.
So we install the latch side picket. We then take a sawzall and cut 2 of the rails on the hinge side and 2 of the rails on the latch side. Since we were careful, we didn't hit the steel brackets at all. We marked it. With the hinges here, always take a screw and make pilot holes through the wood with a screw before you run the wood lags in, because they will split the 2x4 in the back and cause you to have to redo a lot of work. So we've got the hinges on, and we're going to cut the remaining uncut rail segments and get an early look at how it's wanting to swing, what's binding up, what we need to adjust.
As you can see, we're binding up pretty mightily here. Is over here. On the inside of the gate, which I'll show you, I'm going to cut this board to height, and then I'm going to screw it from the back into all these rails, and then screw it with long screws into those rails, helping shore that back up.
So as I described, I got a vertical 2x4 that I'm going to screw into the rails of our new gate section, and then screw them in laterally to the rails of the existing fence to help tighten it all up. As you can see, we're binding a little at the bottom, but that's just rail overhang, so we're going to trim those off with a skill saw. If you do this step, be careful. Take your time.
All right, everybody, the gate's good. Swinging freely. Now we need to install the latch assembly. I'm going to take one of our cutoff boards from earlier and put it here, as well as the same thing right here on the gate.
Now you'll notice as I do this, I put a screw top, middle, and bottom, get it started from the outside. And on the latch side, these screws are going to be about a ½ inch further away from the edge of the picket than they will be on the gate, and you'll see why. And then I close the gate and line up my screws to make sure that they're the exact same height on the gate and the latch side. Looks better that way. I got to cut one more board. Easy cut. And then we'll install it flush with the edge of the picket on the gate. But as you can see here, we didn't go flush with the picket on the latch side. So we've got our latch, we mark it with a pencil, and then we make cuts only to the depth of that rear 2x4 that we recessed a little bit. We're going to knock out all the chunks, and we've got a perfect reset for our latch to sit. I'm using a screw to drill pilot holes before I go in with the wood lags to prevent splitting the 2x4. Can't stress enough how important that is.
I'll tell y'all, I've also done another video covering this same gate cut-in step with a few minor differences. I'll put that video right here. So if you want to double down on your knowledge of this particular project, that will be your best resource.
Same thing with the latch thumb. You've got to put those pilot holes in. You do not want to risk splitting that 2x4 in the back. It takes an extra step to run holes through with just a screw. Oof, looks like we got a little smudge on the lens, but we put our second course of pickets on.
Okay, this final overlap piece that's going to go here, we really want it to clear the latch. So I'm going to notch out a chunk of it about that big. That'll allow us to slide it over.
Easy notch. Make a couple quick cuts with the sawzall. Knock it out of there with something.
Okay, so we've got that cut and notch. Looks pretty good. Bring it over as far as we can. Important to note that for these overlap pickets, I'm using 2-inch screws, not 1 3/4. That guarantees you get at least a little purchase on the rail in the back and not just the first course of pickets behind it. So we'll plumb this one and we'll be well on our way. Okay, the final step before staying is going to be the addition of upper ribbon board. So I'm going to try and find the best looking of all these pickets, which looks to be this one. Just to get started real preliminarily, I'm going to put a board here, you know, just kind of sitting there. I'm going to mark about where I needed to clear the hinges, you know, maybe 3/4 inch on either side of the hinge. I'm going to mark where I needed to clear for the latch, there and there. And then the corner, I'm going to also mark there. So I'm going to make cuts in all those spots.
Couldn't find a speed square, but the post level has a straight edge on it, so we'll use that. Good enough. Made our marks, make our cuts.
Alrighty, everybody. We have got all of our ribbon boards cut. So we are now going to start installing them with 2-inch screws.
We're just putting one screw there, line it all up with a 4-foot level. Once we like how it looks, we'll add a bunch more screws.
For around the corner here,
After the build, that's what we look like.
All right, I'm gonna choose not to spray this because it's just a lot to mask between this fence, that fence, the concrete slab back there. I'm gonna stain this entire thing with a brush and a roller, which is gonna be a painstaking process. I'll show you the first few minutes of it, but after that, I'm not gonna bore you. All right, here we go. I've got my cup bucket filled up with walnut stain. I got a roller here. I'm gonna start by brushing in around the gutter where it's most sensitive. It's the real fine cut-in work. This oil-based stain, if it does get on the gutter, will wipe off. We're just trying to avoid any of the masonry work, any of the concrete. Which again, we can get off with carburetor cleaner if we're quick and we spot it right away, but it's best to avoid it. So I'm just cutting in along the back. Get up in there best I can. 3/8 inch knack roller. Again, don't rush this. You don't want to get stain everywhere. Be real careful, be real easy doing this. So that's that. I'll be hard at it for probably 45 minutes and then I'll show you the results. Alright guys, I'm chugging right along. I've got the inside mostly stained. I'm nearly done. If you're not sure whether to go with real cedar or treated pine or Japanese cedar, I've got this video that can help take the mystery out of that. If you're not sure if you want to go with an oil-based stain, water-based, or transparent, semi-transparent, or solid stain, I've got this video that will help take the mystery out of that for you. I ended up brushing this whole thing just because I feel you can be more careful with the brush. But I got it done inside and out. I'm going to show you a few pictures of both the stain and a few pictures of key points in the installation of this gate that I want to highlight and explain to you through a voiceover.
This picture is just to show you that both posts are perfectly plumb with one another and aligned with one another. I showed you this one so I could explain to you that that is all dirt and mud. I did not get a single drop of stain on the customer's concrete. After you stain, all of your steel components like your brackets and your latch will likely have some stain on them. Make sure you wipe all that down with a rag so it doesn't get on the customer. Before, after the posts, after the build, and when it's all done, stained up. Enjoy some of the other content on your screen right now. Thanks for watching.